Welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise, and moving now to a very interesting and special topic with a special guest. We're joined today with Dr. Ihab, professor of psychiatry and also addiction treatment, as well as his political title being the Secretary of Supreme Council of the Egyptian Social Democratic Party and also a former Shura Council member. We'll definitely focus in this aspect more about addiction and the situation in Egypt, but also we'll touch a little bit on the political side. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us. Let me start off with the first question. And let me say, why do some people take drugs? Just a basic question. And it's widely known to be destructive. But
well,
even
why
though
do many people take drugs?
And they still take drugs.
That's the right question.
Yeah, well, this is a very interesting question, and I can keep on talking on it for 3 hours. But in a quick way, why do people do destructive things to themselves
even
and their
though
bodies?
They know it's destructive?
Like overeat, smoke cigarettes, overwork,
yes.
Use alcohol, gamble. The basic thing when you ask people why did you take drugs, they would tell you it was out of curiosity or because somebody offered and I wanted to try.
Yep.
So we call it peer pressure and novelty seeking.
Yes.
In actual fact, there is a center in the brain called the brain reward mechanism, which is between the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental. Want to hear this, but the basic issue is that this is the pleasure center. This is when you eat, when you drink, when you are tired and get some rest, when you play sports, when you have sex, when you pray and feel elated. This is where the reward to the brain happens.
Okay.
And this center is directly stimulated by all kinds of what we call psychoactive drugs or substances that have an effect on your psychological, starting from tea and coffee up till heroin and cocaine.
Yes.
All these with different amounts.
Different degrees.
With different degrees and different duration and different time between the taking or using the substance. And
so being the drugs, the peak, the highest addiction.
So what do you mean by the effect? Like drinking coffee, what is the relation with the brain? Make you feel better, make you feel...
caffeine actually is a stimulant. It makes you more focused, but it also activates the brain reward mechanism. So caffeine is a psychoactive substance on its own. Plus it activates a substance called dopamine in the brain reward mechanism, so people feel good, not only alert. While, for example, hashish will also activate the dopamine center with a bigger amount of dopamine.
But wouldn't that just be for a certain period of time?
But also makes you calmer.
Yes.
But would that only just last for a certain period of time, and then after that it gets really destructive and you lose the feeling?
Of course. You have all these substances have a withdrawal syndrome to it, including caffeine. Of course, caffeine is debatable. Does it have a withdrawal syndrome or not? As in the physical symptoms that is unhelpful and undesirable that happens whenever you stop using. Of course, heroin has it, nicotine has it, opium has it, alcohol has it, but there are some research articles that say that even caffeine has certain withdrawal symptoms.
But does it have any effect on the mood? Because sometimes people, they drink coffee and they have the better mood.
Of course.
Is this true?
This is, of course.
It's not only about making you alert, it's about also giving you the better mood.
Yeah, the brain reward mechanism is about the mood.
So this explains what happens to me when I drink coffee. So.
Yes, of course. It explains what happens to me when I don't have my morning coffee.
For instance, when you're fasting, this is the tendency. When you don't have your coffee or tea, then you get really...
The mood is
really bad.
You're not happy at all.
You're not happy at all.
Yeah.
So we never knew that this is part of the addiction. So
thanks
for the information.
It is, and it has been part of the. We call it now substance use disorder. It has been part of the substance use disorder classification since 20 or 30 years, even caffeine.
When you say this, the image comes to my mind immediately, looking at Europe and the developed countries and the queues that stands waiting for their morning cup of coffee.
Yes,
So this is exactly addiction, what you're saying. So.
Of course, yes, of course. And it is happening in Cairo now. I mean,
it's becoming
the
even more
new
common now in
cafe,
Egypt.
the postmodern cafe culture is all over in Cairo now.
Going every day in the morning to get your coffee.
But it has the good aspect also, because coffee has the antioxidant side. So it is also beneficial, but with certain doses. Is that correct?
Yeah, of course. You shouldn't exceed the 2 or 3 mugs or cups of coffee a day. After that, it will increase your blood pressure, your heart rate, and will cause various.
So 2 or 3 is acceptable. That's
2 or
fine.
3 acceptable and maybe helpful.
Well, that's interesting.
Yep.
So, if we move to another aspect of addiction now, there is a global trend, and maybe locally it is massive. The amount of people consuming drugs, and specifically the medicine that is used instead of drugs, like tramadol, for example.
Yeah, tramadol is the term drug is the term that you put on any psychoactive substance. So yes, tramadol is a drug. It is very serious. It has hit the Egyptian market hard.
And this is pretty new. May I interrupt you, doctor?
Yeah.
That's not something that we used to see in the past few. This is something very recent, I would presume, or we never heard of it. Was it not common?
It was
Why
used.
is it nowadays a big fuss?
Tramadol was used among the drug subculture, but to a lesser extent and a narrower scale. 15, 20 years ago, we had tramadol still, but it hit the market strong since 2010, 2009.
Exactly, just the past 3-4 years.
Yeah, and after the revolution, because of the security problems, we had a huge epidemic. Basically because of smuggling.
I was going to ask you why.
Yeah.
The relation between that and taking the tramadol.
Smuggling, and there was a funny law when I was a Shura Council member. A general from the Ministry of Interior told me that the problem is that we had funny import-export laws in terms of trying to encourage import-export. The containers would come from China or India full of tramadol pills, but covered by electric fans or blankets or whatever on the surface. If it passes through the customs, the dealer will collect them. If it gets caught, and then you search who imported them, you will find an imaginary name.
Oh.
People would go to the maritime and shipping company and give them imagined names. So the rules did not prevent this. Anybody could present a name and a title, any name and any title. And
so laws were pretty lenient.
Pretty lenient on that. This changed. So tramadol prices actually increased and rocketed actually from £2 a pill to almost £20 a pill now.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
Or £30
but on the other side, there is a lot of locally manufactured same kind of
similar kind of drugs.
Tramadol is locally manufactured, but as with many other commodities, it is cheaper to import it from India and China. The Egyptian tramadol, we will not be able to get tramadol. Tramadol is a very important painkiller for heart attacks, for fractures. It is like morphine. You cannot get rid. You cannot do without it.
What is the percentage of people consuming those drugs who don't need them actually, but you're using them for other purposes?
And my estimate, it is huge. My estimate now, the accurate statistics that went out was from a sample that was gathered in 2007, 2008, and it says that 3 million people are dependent on drugs or have heavy problems with substance use disorders, and 6 million have sort of mild to moderate problems with them. All in all, 9 million people with some kind of substance use disorder. That was before the tramadol.
Before the economic challenge. Before the issues.
No. This research has proved wrong a myth that only rich people use drugs. In actual fact, people from lower economic classes and backgrounds
More of the
Are more
consumers.
consumers of the-
consume these things more heavily, including of course tramadol because it was cheap, but also glue and other kind of pills that are cheaper than heroin,
cough
but also
medications,
heroin.
Yes.
So we have a major problem, and I think tramadol now, I think we at least have 2 or 3 million abusers of tramadol.
That's this drug alone, not mentioning the other drugs.
The
So
other
this
drugs,
is like a big issue, economical burden also
Yes.
on the country, because
Yes.
we're not speaking about today. In 3-4 years, we'll be having a huge health bill for the government. And we already have this big challenge, huge challenge to be facing.
As well as, so these kind of will not be productive people in your community.
Exactly.
No doubt about it. When you talk about the economic and socio-economic impact of the drug problem, you talk indeed about the health problems and the burden on the
Of these
hospitals
people.
and the emergency
On-
rooms and
yeah.
so on. The productivity and the lost
Level of-
hours,
exactly.
lost productive, and the crime rate and the anti-crime
Accident
measures.
rate, everything is just
Accidents,
going up.
of course, is a
Accidents, of
major
course, and drivers driving
Drivers.
and taking, consuming that
you-
medication.
Yeah, you talk
while
about
driving.
family violence,
Of
you
course.
talk about the development efforts that are wasted.
So I presume, I mean, we need to treat this problem from the source. We need
Yeah.
to sort of come down to try to solve why are people taking it, which is, I know, very hard, but I mean,
I think nobody will ever achieve a status where there is no one
Eradicated.
using
But we
drugs
can
in the country.
minimize it,
But we
though.
can reduce it. We
Yeah.
can reduce
at
it.
least.
We can offer treatment and rehabilitation for people who want out. We can reduce the harms. We can.
And tell me, doctor, is it now, if you're mentioning people who want out, now let's
Yeah.
move to another aspect. How long does it take? Is it easy really to get out of drugs, or is there a myth that whoever takes cannot get over it? I mean,
No, it was proven that there is a way out, and in actual fact, the Lancet, which is probably the most prestigious or one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world, said that if you treat addiction as a chronic illness and compare it to hypertension,
Just like any other disease,
bronchial
or
asthma,
diabetes or anything.
kidney diseases, or diabetes. Indeed, they compared it, and they found that the results of effective treatment are similar. Compliance also to the treatment is similar.
You mean the strategy or the treatment itself?
Yeah,
The strategy.
the treatment itself. And the treatment is
Okay.
not medication in case of drugs. The withdrawal symptoms is the least of our worries. Withdrawal symptoms go away from 2 to 5 days in case of heroin, from 5 to 10 days in case of tramadol. And any junior doctor, I can train him on that in 2 hours. And he will know all the ins and outs of how to treat withdrawal symptoms. The problem is the rehabilitation, the period after
withdrawal.
the relapse prevention, if you like, because it was shown that if you do the withdrawal symptoms alone, 2% of the people keep abstinent after 5 or 6 years, 2% only. If you don't do withdrawal symptoms, 2% will keep abstinence too, will achieve abstinence on their own. So, but if you do rehabilitation, long-term rehabilitation, which is 3 to 6 months, you will achieve 67% stable abstinence, which is about the same rate of stable control of diabetes or hypertension or kidney disease.
Yeah.
So, yes, the treatment is effective if you put evidence-based strategies and methodologies in terms of rehabilitation, including therapeutic communities, what is called 12-step programs and cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational enhancement, but not, rapid withdrawal, slow withdrawal treatment is
Not
the
really.
same. It is ineffective unless you apply an effective strategy.
so
after.
obviously a patient doctor can't do it on his own. He has
They-
to do it in a treatment center.
Well, patients can do them on their own, even withdrawal symptoms. Withdrawal symptoms of heroin cannot kill you, but withdrawal symptoms of tramadol or alcohol can actually kill you, بعد الشر عليكي. But whatever treatment after that, it is some sort of learning a new language. A drug addict When he is happy, he uses drugs. Sad, he uses drugs. When he wants to socialize, he uses drugs. When he wants to be alone, he uses drugs. So his language to deal with the world is drugs.
Controlled by the drugs.
Yeah. So it is not about the withdrawal symptoms. It is after that, how would he live?
How is he going to manage?
So you need to teach him a new language. So if you want somebody to stop speaking English and you want to let him learn Arabic, he needs to go to a school. Of course, some people can learn it on their own or use
but it
books,
won't be the proper
but this
Arabic.
is, yeah, this is 2% only who can.
And it won't be the proper right kind of language.
Oh, yeah, unless they are genius, you know. But a normal person will need at least 3 or 6 months of an intensive course of Arabic to stop using English and use Arabic in his everyday life. This is what we call rehabilitation, learning a new language to deal with life, from principles, from morality, from expressing emotions, from dealing with anger, anxiety, fear, depression. All this you need to learn a new language, which is what we call drug rehabilitation, therapeutic community rehabilitation program.
That's interesting, and it sounds like a big thing now in Egypt. It sounds like something that is needed with the huge number that you're mentioning.
It is, and it is an emerging field in among psychiatrists, doctors, but also social workers. But many recovering addicts are becoming now counselors who are qualified and can work everywhere. There are
That's the best way.
Yeah, of course, it is proven, evidence-based. But we have lots of abuses too from doctors and other fields. We should regulate the field more, but also strengthen the field because it is a much needed
So Doctor, if we move like a step back to the root cause, and if you would agree with me, there are two things that might help or eliminate this. The first thing is the religious aspect and the religious dialogue that reaches to the people to address issues like that, ruining your body, ruining your health system. And the second thing is about sports, which is absent also from the culture, because a guy who is very healthy and athletic would never think about drugs.
Well, these are two widely held beliefs, and I have to tell you there is scientific evidence about that. Yes, indeed. At large, religious people do not use drugs, and when they use them, they recover more easily than non-religious people at large. But however, religion can be also a risk factor. There are proven evidence of that. If you are too strict, if you are, for example, there is a guy called Gorsuch. Gorsuch did a very interesting research in 1995 and became a classic. He said that whoever have an idea of God as a fierce God, a person who is after you to punish you whenever you do something wrong, these are the people who are more prone to use drugs and fall to drugs. But person who see God as loving, caring, merciful are less prone to use drugs. So whenever I hear preachers who say drugs are bad for you, drugs will take you to hell, they are risk factors actually. They are not protective factors.
Yes, it's the way. The way of communication.
The milieu, the environment of the religious discourse. The other issue is about sports. Sports at large also can be a protective factor, but there are two important issues. That many competitive sports can be a risk factor because it can be.
p.m. here in Cairo, time for the LA top stories. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inspected on Friday the works of modernizing a number of airports used in the military and the civilian purposes, aiming at enhancing the capabilities of those airports. The president stressed upon the importance of operating the flights to serve the new capital and Cairo's neighboring districts. The head of state met with the staff of companies working on developing the airports, asking them to finish their mission on time, scheduled by August to go in line with the inauguration of the new Suez Canal. Al-Sisi also greeted the armed forces and their share in achieving the comprehensive development and boosting services introduced to the civil sector, in coordination with the companies working in construction and roads. Later, the president inspected the area of Hadabat Al Galala, where work is going on to turn it into a touristic destination, in addition to the establishment of a medical city for medical tourism and a university carrying the name of late Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz. The Cairo Criminal Court has set Saturday, May the 16th as the day to issue the ruling against the leading figures of the terrorist Brotherhood organization, including the deposed President Mohammed Morsi, on charges of breaking out of Wadi Nothroun prison and spying for foreign countries. The court announced it had concluded the investigations in the case dubbed the Great Espionage, where Morsi, along with 10 other leaders, are defendants accused of spying and leaking the national security documents to Qatar. The trial will be aired exclusively on the Egyptian state television. The United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator for Yemen urged the Saudi-led coalition to ease the inspection regime to allow vital commercial and humanitarian goods into the country. The coordinator told the United Nations briefing in Geneva that it was critical to import fuel into Yemen to run the hospital generators and pumps for the water and sanitation system. The remarks came as fighting and skirmishes continue in the localized areas including Aden and Taz, impeding access to the civilians despite a 5-day truce which started on Tuesday. The Syrian army dispatched reinforcements to Palmyra in a bid to push back Daesh militants who advanced on Friday to within touching distance of the ancient city. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that the terrorists of the Daesh group were on kilometers from the archaeological site of Palmyra, adding that the state army was bombing the surroundings of Tadmur from the air, using the Arabic name for Palmyra. The UNESCO describes Palmyra as a heritage site of outstanding universal value. And the Burundian forces arrested the leader of a failed coup on Friday, and President Pierre Nkurunziza returned to the capital, but the protesters pledged to go back to the streets, setting the stage for more clashes. The Major General was captured 2 days after announcing Nkurunziza had been toppled in the African nation, which is still recovering from the ethnically fueled civil war that ended just a decade ago. Burundi was plunged into a deep crisis after Nkurunziza announced he was running for another 5-year term in the country. These were the latest top stories. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Competitive sports can be a risk factor because it can make you use drugs. Number two, sports for athletes, they have something psychologists would call the boredom index. They get bored easily, so they seek novelty, they seek adventures,
new things to try.
So new things to try more than your average person. Part of their psychological makeup.
Yeah.
So they seek novelty and adventure and some to risk. So yes, sports can be protective factor under certain conditions. We call the resiliency fostering environment or resiliency fostering factor, and it has been carefully measured. Also, the spirituality aspect of religion is productive, and this has been also scientifically measured. What is spirituality? Difference between
Dr. Ehab, I don't want to lose the opportunity. I know our time is up, but I want to ask you one final question. Regarding your political aspect, being the Secretary Supreme Council of the Egyptian Social Democratic Party, just in a minute, how do you see the political outlook in Egypt, and how much of optimism, pessimism do you have?
I have faith. The Egyptian society is, if you use the drug terminology, is in a therapeutic community stage. We are confronting each other where there are excesses happening. There is expression of aggression. Some of it are out of the limits, but part of it is still within the limits. People are hostile a little against each other, but people are realizing the variety and the diversity of the Egyptian society, and they are seeking a new set of rules to live together. This is the psychological analysis in a nutshell of what's happening. I think we will pass through some tough time, but I hope we don't degenerate into war or military war, which I think is not a very big risk right now, or civil war, and we will reach democracy after some hard time.
Yes,
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ehab Al-Kharrat. That was a very interesting talk, and
Thank you.
Professor of Psychiatry and Addiction Treatment. Now we're going to move to a report quickly coming up, which is the aim of discussing the financial strategies of the Ministry of Finance in the coming period. A press conference was held with the Minister of Finance, Dr. Hani Adri Damian. A number of businessmen attended the event, and we have Nile TV's Basma Taha attended the conference and filed this report. Let's go and see.